Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the passenger ship New Seoul and watched the stars through the big windows. The ship was huge, almost like a small city floating in space. 50,000 people lived inside it, all hoping to start new lives on a planet called Kepler 442b. Most of them were families with children, farmers looking for fresh land and workers wanting better jobs. The ship had been flying for 3 months now. Every day, Hyunwoo walked through the halls and saw people playing games, children learning in schools, and families eating together in the food courts. It made him happy to see so many people excited about their future. "Captain," said So-min, the chief engineer. She was a short woman with quick hands and a smart mind. "All systems are working fine. We should reach the planet in 2 more days." Hyunwoo smiled. "Good news. The people will be happy to hear that." Taeho, the navigation officer, was looking at his screens when he suddenly frowned. "Captain, I'm seeing something strange on the sensors." "What kind of strange?" Hyunwoo asked, walking over to look. "Ships, sir, big ones. They just appeared out of nowhere, like they were hiding." The main screen showed 5 enormous ships. They were dark gray and covered in sharp points that made them look like giant weapons. Each ship was at least twice the size of the New Seoul. "Are they friendly?" So-min asked. Before anyone could answer, a voice came through the ship's communication system. The voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Human vessel, you will stop moving immediately. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Velthari Empire. You are in our space without permission." Hyunwoo took a deep breath. He had heard of the Velthari before, but had never met them. They were known to be very powerful and not very friendly. "This is Captain Hyunwoo of the New Seoul," he said into the communicator. "We are peaceful travelers going to Kepler 442b. We mean no harm to anyone." "You will turn around and go back where you came from," the alien voice said. Now, Hyunwoo looked at his crew. Taeho was checking the star maps and So-min was watching the engine readings. They all looked worried. "Admiral Kethvar," Hyunwoo said carefully. "According to the galactic travel laws, all ships have the right to peaceful passage through space. We are not stopping at any of your planets. We are just passing through." There was a long silence. Then the alien voice came back, much angrier than before. "You dare to quote laws to us? You think your human laws matter here? We are the Velthari. We have ruled this part of space for 1,000 years. On the screen, the alien ships began to move closer. Red lights started flashing on them, which usually meant weapons were getting ready to fire. "Sir," Taeho whispered, "maybe we should do what they want." Hyunwoo thought about the 50,000 people on his ship. There were babies who had been born during the trip, old people who had saved all their money for this chance at a new life, and young couples who wanted to build homes together. "Admiral Kethvar," he said, "we understand this is your space, but we are just trying to reach our new home. We don't want any trouble. Can't we work something out?" "Work something out?" The alien laughed, but it sounded more like a growl. "You humans think you can bargain with us? You think you are equal to the mighty Velthari?" Through the windows, Hyunwoo could see the alien ships getting closer. They were so big that they blocked out some of the stars. "Please," Hyunwoo said. "We have families on this ship, children, old people. We just want to go to our new planet and live in peace." "Your mistake was coming here," Admiral Kethvar said. "Now you will learn what happens to species that do not show proper respect to their betters." Suddenly, bright lights began charging up on the front of the alien ships. So-min grabbed Hyunwoo's arm. "Captain, those are weapons. Big ones. All hands prepare for emergency jump." Hyunwoo shouted into the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill." But it was too late. The Velthari ships fired their weapons all at once. Massive beams of energy hit the New Seoul from 5 different directions. The ship's shields lasted only a few seconds before breaking like glass. The first hit knocked out the power to most of the ship. People screamed as lights went out and artificial gravity failed. The second hit tore a huge hole in the side of the ship and air began rushing out into space. "Hull breach on decks 15 through 20, So-min shouted over the alarms. "We're losing life support." Hyunwoo tried to reach the escape pod controls, but another weapon blast hit the bridge directly. The explosion threw him across the room and everything went white. In the chaos, Communications Officer Ji-won managed to reach one of the few working emergency pods. As the New Seoul broke apart around her, she quickly typed a message into the pod's transmitter. "This is Ji-won of the New Seoul," she said as tears ran down her face. "We were attacked without warning by the Velthari Empire. 50,000 innocent people are dead. They killed us just for traveling through their space. Someone needs to know what happened here. Someone needs to remember us. She pressed the send button just as her escape pod's power died. The message shot out into space at light speed, heading toward Earth. Behind her, the new Soul finally broke completely apart. Pieces of the ship floated in space like a sad monument to all the people who had just wanted to find a new home. Admiral Kethvar watched the destruction from his command ship. To him, this was just another day of keeping order in his space. Another weak species had learned their place. Clean up the debris, he told his crew. We don't want any evidence of this mess floating around. The Velthari ships began destroying the remaining pieces of the new Soul with small weapon blasts. Soon there was nothing left but empty space and stars. Admiral Kethvar never thought about the message that had escaped. He never wondered if the humans might want revenge. In his mind, the matter was finished. The humans had been taught their lesson, just like dozens of other species before them. But somewhere in the darkness of space, Jiwan's message continued traveling toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. 3 months after the new Soul died in space, Jiwan's message finally reached Earth. The signal was weak and broken, but the computers at the Deep Space Communication Center managed to put the pieces together. The technician who first heard the message was a young man named Dong Su. He had been working the night shift half asleep at his desk when the alarm started going off. At first he thought it was just another equipment problem, but when he played the message, his blood turned cold. This is Jiwan of the New Soul. We were attacked without warning by the Velthari Empire. 50,000 innocent people are dead. Dongsu's hand shook as he called his supervisor. Within an hour, the message was being played in the highest levels of Earth's government. Within 6 hours, every human colony in space knew what had happened. Admiral Dong Hyun was eating breakfast with his family when his emergency communicator buzzed. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, someone who had hoped never to see another war. But when he heard Jiwan's message, something hard and cold settled in his stomach. How many people? He asked quietly. 50,000, sir, said the officer on the other end of the call. Men, women, children, all dead? Dong Hyun closed his eyes. In his long military career, he had seen many terrible things, but this was different. These weren't soldiers who knew the risks. These were families looking for a better life. Call an emergency meeting, he said. Get everyone. Defense Council, Marine Command, Intelligence Division. Everyone. The meeting took place in a deep underground room in Seoul. The most important military leaders from all over human space came together, their faces grim in the cold blue light of the holographic displays. General Min Kyung was the first to speak. She was a tough woman who commanded the Terran Marines, and she looked like she wanted to hit something. I've been reading about these Velthari, she said, throwing a datapad on the table. They've done this before, a lot. They find a species that looks weak, attack them, and either make them slaves or kill them all. Dr. Seung Ho, head of the Weapons Research Division, nodded grimly. According to our files, they've destroyed at least 12 different species in the last century. Sometimes they keep survivors as workers. Sometimes they just eliminate everyone. Why? Asked someone from the back of the room. Intelligence analyst Hee Jin stood up. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who spent her time studying alien cultures. Because they can, she said simply. The Velthari evolved as predators, but not like us. They're bullies. They pick on creatures weaker than themselves. When they find someone who might fight back, they destroy them quickly before they can become a threat. Admiral Dong Hyun looked around the room at all the angry faces. These were good people, people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. Now they were being told that 50,000 innocent humans had been murdered just for traveling through space. What do we know about their military? He asked. General Min Kyung pulled up a holographic display showing the Velthari Empire. It was huge, covering 40 star systems. They have about 500 large warships, she said. Each ship is bigger than anything we've ever built. They're designed to look scary and to overwhelm enemies with size and firepower. Sounds like they're used to easy victories, said Dr. Seung Ho. That's exactly right, Yejin said. Every species they've fought has surrendered quickly. They've never had to deal with a real war. Admiral Dong Hyun was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, he spoke. There's something these Velthari don't understand about humans, he said. They think we're just another weak species that will run away or beg for mercy. But we're not. He stood up and walked to the holographic display showing the Velthari ships. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day. Ice ages, plagues, volcanoes, earthquakes. We survived them all. We learned to work together, to never give up, to fight back against anything that threatened us. The room was completely silent now. Everyone was listening. These aliens have never faced a species like us, Dong-hyun continued. They've never fought anyone who turns tragedy into fuel for revenge. They've never met anyone who gets stronger when things get harder. General Min-kyung smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to do something dangerous. What are your orders, sir? Admiral Dong-hyun looked around the room one more time. He thought about the 50,000 people who died just for wanting a new home. He thought about their families on Earth who would never see them again. He thought about all the other species that had been destroyed by these bullies. We're going to war, he said quietly, but not the kind of war they expect. They think war means big ships shooting at each other until someone surrenders. We're going to show them what war really means. Dr. Seung-ho leaned forward. What do you need from my department? Everything, Dong-hyun said. Every weapon we've ever designed. Every secret project. Every crazy idea that we thought was too dangerous to use. We're going to need all of it. And my Marines? Asked General Min-kyung. Start training them for something they've never done before, Dong-hyun said. We're not just going to defeat the Velthari. We're going to make sure this never happens to anyone else ever again. Over the next few weeks, something changed in human space. It was like a sleeping giant had woken up and remembered how dangerous it could be. On Mars, weapons factories that had been shut down for decades suddenly came back to life. Workers came in around the clock to build new ships, new weapons, new armor. On Europa, the Marine training centers expanded to 3 times their normal size. Young men and women lined up to volunteer, all of them thinking about the 50,000 people who had died in the darkness of space. On Earth's moon, Dr. Seung-ho's team began working on projects that had been locked away in classified files. Weapons that had been considered too terrible to use were suddenly being prepared for war, but the most important change was in the hearts of the human people. The news about the new Sol had spread everywhere. Every human colony, every space station, every mining ship knew what had happened. They also knew that something was being done about it. Admiral Dong-hyun received thousands of messages from humans all over the galaxy. Families offering their sons and daughters for military service. Scientists volunteering to work on weapons, even children sending drawings of spaceships and messages saying they wanted to help. One message came from an old woman on Alpha Centauri. It was short and simple. My grandson was on the new Sol. He was 7 years old and loved dinosaurs. Make them pay. That message was pinned to the wall of the command center where everyone could see it. The Velthari had congratulated themselves on destroying another weak species. They had no idea that they had just poked the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. They were about to learn that some species don't run away when attacked. Some species hunt back. 6 months after the new Sol died, the human response began. It came in waves like a terrible storm that started small and grew bigger with each passing day. The Velthari Empire had ruled their part of space for so long that they had become lazy. Their ships were huge and powerful, but they were also slow and hard to change direction. Their commanders were used to enemies who gave up quickly, so they never learned how to fight a real war. Admiral Kethavar sat in his command ship, looking out at the peaceful stars. He had almost forgotten about the human ship he had destroyed. To him, it was just another small problem that had been solved. Then the first wave hit. Captain Jin-ho commanded a small fleet of human ships that were completely different from anything the Velthari had ever seen. These ships were small, fast, and almost invisible to sensors. They could appear anywhere without warning and disappear just as quickly. The first target was a Velthari communication station on the edge of their space. The station was huge, like a metal city floating among the asteroids. It connected dozens of Velthari worlds and let them talk to each other across the galaxy. Remember the new Sol? Jin-ho said quietly as his ships moved into position. The attack lasted only minutes. The human ships appeared from behind the asteroids, fired their weapons with perfect accuracy, and vanished before the station's defenses could respond. The communication station exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 planets away, but that was just the beginning. All across Velthari space, similar attacks happened at the same time. Communication relays, supply depots, fuel stations, and weapon factories were destroyed in a perfectly coordinated assault. The humans moved like ghosts, hitting their targets and disappearing before help could arrive. Within 3 days, the Velthari had lost more than half of their infrastructure. Their ships couldn't talk to each other. Their planets couldn't send supplies to their fleets. Their military was suddenly blind, deaf, and starving. Admiral Kethavar stared at the reports coming in from across his empire. He couldn't understand how this was happening. How are they doing this? He demanded from his officers. These humans were supposed to be weak. We destroyed their ship easily. Sir, said one of his advisors, maybe we underestimated them. Kethavar's eyes burned with anger. Impossible. We are the Velthari. We have conquered 100 worlds. But even as he spoke, the second wave began. Colonel Era led the human marine forces in attacks on Velthari colonies. But these weren't normal military attacks. The humans had studied the Velthari carefully and learned something important. Most of the people living on Velthari worlds weren't actually Velthari. They were slaves. For hundreds of years, the Velthari had conquered other species and forced them to work in their mines, farms, and factories. These slave species had given up hope of ever being free until the humans arrived. The first liberation happened on a planet called Vorthak. Millions of creatures called the Zephyrians lived there, mining rare metals for their Velthari masters. They looked like tall, thin birds with intelligent eyes and gentle faces. When Colonel Era's Marines landed, they expected to fight the Velthari garrison. Instead, they found only a few hundred Velthari guards watching over millions of slaves. Attention Zephyrians, Era broadcast in their language. We are humans. We are here to free you. If you want to be free, help us fight your oppressors. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The Zephyrians rose up against their guards with fury that had been building for centuries. Within hours, the planet was free. But the Zephyrians didn't just celebrate their freedom. They joined the human fleet. We want to help you free others, their leader told Colonel Era. We know where the Velthari keep their prisoners. We know their weak points. Let us fight beside you. The same thing happened on planet after planet. The humans would arrive, defeat the small Velthari garrisons, and free millions of slaves. Each freed species added their ships, their knowledge, and their anger to the growing human fleet. Admiral Kethavar watched in horror as his empire began to fall apart. Worlds that had been loyal for centuries were suddenly in rebellion. Species that had served the Velthari for generations were now fighting against them. This is impossible, he said, but his voice was no longer confident. Then came the third wave. Admiral Wu Jin arrived with the main human battle fleet. These were the big ships, the powerful weapons that humanity had been building in secret, but they were still much smaller than the Velthari Grand Armada. The two fleets met at a place called Proxima Theta, near the heart of Velthari space. Admiral Kethavar commanded 500 of the largest warships ever built. Each ship was a kilometer long and armed with enough weapons to destroy a city. Admiral Wu Jin had only 50 ships, but they moved like they were alive. All ships. Remember why we're here, Wu Jin said over the radio. 50,000 innocent people died because these bullies thought they could kill anyone they wanted. Today we show them they were wrong. The battle began when the Velthari opened fire from long range. Their massive weapons sent streams of energy across space, enough firepower to vaporize mountains. But the human ships weren't where the energy beams hit. Engineer Kyung-soo watched from the bridge of the human dreadnought Incheon as the human fleet scattered, like a school of fish avoiding a shark. Each ship moved independently, but somehow they all worked together perfectly. How are they doing that? Asked a freed Zephyrian observer. Practice, Kyung-soo said with a grim smile. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned how to coordinate without central command, because central command gets destroyed in real battles. The human ships moved around the Velthari formation like wolves attacking a herd of cattle. They struck at weak points, concentrated their fire on single targets, and used the large Velthari ship's size against them. The Velthari ships were powerful, but they were built to fight enemies who would line up and trade shots like gentlemen. They had never faced an enemy that refused to fight fair. One by one, the great Velthari warships began to die. Their weapons couldn't track targets that moved so unpredictably. Their armor couldn't protect them when dozens of smaller ships concentrated their fire on single weak spots. Admiral Kethvar watched his flagship's main screen as another of his mighty vessels exploded. The humans were destroying ships that had been the terror of the galaxy for centuries. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we're getting reports from all across the fleet. Our ships can't keep up with the human tactics. They're everywhere at once." "Impossible," Kethvar said, but his voice was weak now. "We are the superior species. We have the bigger ships, the more powerful weapons." On the human flagship, Admiral Wu Jin watched the battle unfold. His ships were taking damage too, but they kept fighting with a determination that the Velthari couldn't understand. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "the enemy formation is collapsing. They don't know how to respond to our attack patterns." "Good," Wu Jin said. "But remember, we're not here to conquer them. We're here to make sure they never attack innocent people again." The Battle of Proxima Theta lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Velthari Grand Armada was destroyed. Only a few dozen of their ships escaped, fleeing back toward their home systems. Admiral Kethvar found himself a prisoner on the human flagship, his own ship a burning wreck. As he was led through the corridors, he saw something that shocked him more than the military defeat. The human ship was full of different species. Zephyrians, Korthax, Melody, and dozens of others worked alongside the human crew. All of them were species that the Velthari had once enslaved. "How?" he asked Admiral Wu Jin when they met. "How did you turn them against us so quickly?" Wu Jin looked at the defeated alien commander with something that might have been pity. "We didn't turn them against you," he said. "You did that yourselves over centuries of cruelty. We just gave them the chance to fight back." Admiral Kethvar suddenly understood that this wasn't just a military defeat. The humans had done something far worse than destroying his fleet. They had destroyed the fear that held his empire together. Without that fear, the Velthari were just another species in the galaxy. And now everyone knew they could be beaten. The interrogation room on the human flagship was small and simple. Admiral Kethvar sat across from Captain Sang-min, still trying to understand how his mighty empire had fallen so quickly. "Your species is primitive," Kethvar said, his voice full of confusion and anger. "Your ships are smaller than ours. Your weapons are weaker. How did you defeat us?" Captain Sang-min looked at the alien commander with calm eyes. He was a quiet man who had spent years studying alien cultures, trying to understand how different species thought and fought. "That's exactly why we won," Sang-min said. "You think bigger and stronger always wins. But you're wrong." On the table between them was a data pad showing videos from the recent battles. Sang-min turned it so Kethvar could see. "Watch this," he said, starting a video from the Battle of Proxima Theta. "See how our ships move? Each one makes its own decisions, but they all work together. Your ships follow orders from a central command. When we destroyed your command ship, the rest of your fleet didn't know what to do." Kethvar watched the video with growing horror. He could see how the human ships moved like a pack of hunting animals, each one knowing exactly where the others were and what they were doing. "This is impossible," he said. "No species can coordinate like that without central command." "You're right," Sang-min said. "Most species can't, but humans can because we had to learn how." The captain stood up and walked to the small window that looked out at the stars. "Tell me about your homeworld, Admiral. What was it like when your species was young?" Kethvar straightened with pride. "Velthar is a paradise. Rich forests, clean rivers, gentle weather. My people evolved as the dominant predators hunting the weak herbivores that shared our world." "Sounds nice," Sang-min said. "Easy hunting. Prey that ran away when they saw you coming." "Of course. We were superior. We were meant to rule." Sang-min turned back to face the alien. "Our world was different. Earth tried to kill us every day. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Diseases that killed half our population. Volcanoes that blocked out the sun. Earthquakes that destroyed our cities." He sat back down and pulled up another video on the data pad. This one showed Earth from space, a blue and white marble spinning in the darkness. "But the worst part wasn't the natural disasters," Sang-min continued. "The worst part was each other. Humans spent thousands of years fighting other humans. We learned to work in small groups without leaders because leaders get killed in battle. We learned to adapt quickly because the species that couldn't adapt died out." Kethvar was beginning to understand, and he didn't like what he was learning. "Every war we fought made us better at fighting," Sang-min said. "Every disaster we survived made us stronger. Every challenge that should have destroyed us just taught us new ways to survive." Dr. Younge entered the room carrying a thick folder full of research papers. She was a xenobiologist who had spent months studying every species in the galaxy. "Admiral Cathvar," she said politely, "I've been studying your empire and the species you've conquered. Would you like to know what I found?" The alien commander said nothing, but his eyes were full of fear. "Every single species you've ever defeated evolved as prey animals," Dr. Younge said, opening her folder. "The Zephyrians, the Korthax, the Melody, all of them. They're herd creatures. When threatened, their instinct is to group together and follow a leader who will keep them safe." She pulled out pictures of different alien species. They all looked gentle and peaceful, with large eyes and soft features. "That's why your intimidation tactics worked so well," she continued. "These species are naturally programmed to submit to a stronger predator. It's how they survived on their homeworlds." "So?" Cathvar said, but his voice was weak. "So you never fought a real predator before," Dr. Younge said. "You fought prey animals that were already programmed to lose. When they saw your big ships and powerful weapons, their instincts told them to surrender." Captain Sang-min leaned forward. "But humans aren't prey animals, Admiral. We're persistence hunters. When something threatens us, we don't run away or submit. We hunt it down and kill it." Dr. Younge pulled out one more picture. This one showed a human hunter from thousands of years ago, chasing a mammoth across an endless plain. "This is how humans hunted on Earth," she said. "We didn't have claws or fangs or poison. We just refused to give up. We would chase our prey for days, sometimes weeks, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then we would kill it." "That's what you did to us," Captain Sang-min said quietly. "You attacked our people, so we hunted you down. The only difference is we didn't take weeks to do it." Admiral Cathvar was silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. "What happens now? Will you kill us all?" "No," Dr. Younge said. "That's the difference between us and you. We don't kill people just because we can." Captain Sang-min activated the room's communication system. "Admiral Dong-hyun, the prisoner is ready to hear your terms." The voice of the human fleet commander came through the speakers. Calm and professional. "Admiral Cathvar, you and your people have a choice. You can surrender unconditionally, release all your slaves, and submit to war crimes trials. Your people will be allowed to live on their homeworld under supervision." "And if we refuse?" Cathvar asked. "Then we continue hunting you until there are none of you left." The alien commander closed his eyes. "How long do we have to decide?" 24 hours. After the communication ended, Cathvar sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, he looked up at Captain Sang-min. "You said your people spent thousands of years fighting each other. How did you ever learn to work together?" "We had to," Sang-min said. "We realized that the universe was big enough to threaten all of us. We learned that we were stronger when we protected each other instead of killing each other." "And now you protect other species too?" "Yes, because we know what it's like to be hunted." Admiral Cathvar thought about this for a long time. His species had ruled through fear for so long that he had forgotten there were other ways to live. "The 24 hours are up in 18 hours, he said finally. "Yes." "What, if my people choose to fight instead of surrender?" Captain Sang-min's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Then you'll learn what humans do to species that hurt innocent people." Before Cathvar could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed red, and the captain's communicator buzzed urgently. "Sir," came a voice through the device, "we're detecting a massive energy signature from the Velthari home system. It looks like they're charging some kind of planet killer weapon." Captain Sang-min looked at Admiral Cathvar with disappointment. "I guess your people have made their choice." The alien commander felt ice in his veins. He knew about the planet killer. It was the Velthari's ultimate weapon, built to destroy entire worlds. There was only one target it could be aimed at: Earth. "You don't understand," Cathvar said, standing up quickly. "If they fire that weapon, they'll kill billions of humans. My people are desperate. They'll destroy your homeworld rather than surrender." Captain Sang-min was already moving toward the door. "Then we'd better stop them." As they left the interrogation room, Admiral Cathvar realized something that chilled him to his bones. The humans weren't angry about the weapon being fired at their homeworld. They were excited. He was about to see what humans did when someone threatened their families. The journey to the Velthari home system took 3 days. During that time, Admiral Cathvar watched the humans prepare for what they called the final lesson. He expected them to be angry or afraid. After all, a planet-killer weapon was aimed at their homeworld. But instead, the humans seemed calm, almost relaxed. They worked on their weapons and checked their ships with the same careful attention they might give to routine maintenance. "Don't you understand?" Kethavar asked Captain Sang-min as they stood on the bridge watching the stars. "That weapon can destroy your entire planet. Billions of your people will die." Sang-min smiled, but it wasn't a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Admiral, let me show you something," he said, leading Kethavar to a screen that showed the space around Earth. The alien commander looked at the display and gasped. Earth was surrounded by thousands of defense platforms, each one bristling with weapons. Between the platforms, patrol ships moved in perfect formations. "How long has this been here?" Kethavar whispered. "We started building it the day after we received G1's message," Sang-min said. "Engineer Tae-young designed the whole system. We knew that when we went to war with you, you might try to attack our home." On the screen, they could see the massive energy beam from the Velthari planet-killer weapon approaching Earth. But as it got closer, the defense platforms began firing. Thousands of smaller energy beams reached out from Earth's defenders and struck the planet-killer beam. The collision created an explosion of light that could be seen from neighboring star systems. When the light faded, Earth was still there, safe and undamaged. "Impossible," Kethavar breathed. "No," said Sang-min. "Just prepared. Humans are very good at preparing for the worst possible thing that could happen." The human fleet arrived at the Velthari home system to find chaos. The planet-killer weapon had used most of the system's power, and now every remaining Velthari ship was gathered around their home world in a desperate last stand. Commander Su-jin led the final assault. She was young for such a responsibility, but she had proven herself in dozens of smaller battles. As her ship approached the Velthari defensive line, she opened a communication channel. "Attention, Velthari fleet," she said in their language. "This is Commander Su-jin of the human forces. You have one final chance to surrender. Lay down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." The response came in the form of weapons fire. Every Velthari ship opened fire at once, sending enough energy to level a mountain range toward the human fleet. But the humans had learned from every previous battle. Their ships scattered and regrouped, moving like a living thing that couldn't be hit. They concentrated their fire on single targets, destroying the Velthari ships one by one. The battle was over in 4 hours. When the last Velthari warship stopped firing, the space around their homeworld was filled with debris and the floating hulks of once mighty vessels. Commander Su-jin stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked down at the Velthari homeworld. It was beautiful, just as Admiral Kethavar had said. Green forests, blue oceans, white clouds, a paradise world where a species of bullies had been born. "All ships assume orbital positions," she ordered. "But remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to make sure this never happens again." 3 days later, Ambassador Moonho arrived with representatives from 40 different species. These were the races that the Velthari had enslaved or threatened over the centuries. Now they came to see their former oppressors brought to justice. The meeting took place in a great hall on the Velthari homeworld. Admiral Kethavar sat with the surviving leaders of his people, all of them looking defeated and confused. Ambassador Moonho was an older man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. But when he spoke, everyone listened. "People of the galaxy," he said, addressing not just those in the room but the billions watching on screens across known space. "We are here today because 50,000 innocent humans were murdered for the crime of traveling through space. But we learned that this was not the first time such a thing had happened." He gestured to the representatives of the freed species. "The Velthari have committed genocide against 12 different races. They have enslaved millions of beings. They have ruled through fear and cruelty for over 1,000 years. The Velthari leaders said nothing. What could they say? But we are not here for revenge," Moonho continued. "We are here to make sure this never happens again to anyone." Dr. Heejin stepped forward with a thick folder of research. She had spent months studying every species in the galaxy, trying to understand how the Velthari had been able to dominate so many others for so long. "What we found," she said, "is that across the galaxy only one species evolved the way humans did. Only one species developed on a world that constantly tried to kill them. Only one species learned to fight back instead of giving up." She opened her folder and showed pictures of hundreds of different alien races. Every other intelligent species in the galaxy evolved as prey animals. Their first instinct when threatened is to hide, to submit or to seek protection from a stronger leader. The Velthari knew this and used it against them. Admiral Kethvar finally spoke. "What makes you different? Why don't you just take over like we did?" Ambassador Moonho smiled sadly. "Because we know what it's like to be the victim. Humans spent thousands of years being conquered by other humans. We know how it feels to have your home destroyed, your family killed, your freedom taken away." He walked over to stand in front of the Velthari leaders. "We also know something else. We know that ruling through fear doesn't work forever. Eventually, the people you oppress learn to fight back. And when they do, they fight harder than you ever imagined possible." Dr. Heejin continued her presentation. "From today forward, the galaxy will be protected by the Galactic Protection Council. Humans will patrol the space between the stars, watching for any species that tries to harm innocent people." "Why?" asked one of the Velthari leaders. "Why should you care what happens to species you've never met?" Commander Sujin answered from the back of the room. "Because we remember the new soul. We remember 50,000 people who just wanted to find a new home. We remember that we couldn't protect them." She walked forward, her uniform bearing the names of all the ships that had been lost in the war. "But we can protect others. We can make sure that no other species has to go through what those people went through." The meeting ended with the establishment of new laws for the galaxy. The Velthari would be allowed to live on their homeworld, but under constant supervision. Any species that attacked innocent travelers would face the human fleet. Most importantly, any species that was threatened or oppressed could call for help, and the humans would answer. 10 years later, Captain Minho patrolled the outer edges of the galaxy in his destroyer Guangzhou. The ship was one of hundreds that constantly moved through space, watching and protecting. The galaxy was peaceful now, but it was a different kind of peace than before. It wasn't the peace of fear that the Velthari had enforced. It was the peace of knowing that someone was watching, someone who would fight back if the innocent were threatened. Minho's communication officer was a young Zephyrian named Kylth, whose grandparents had been slaves under the Velthari. Now she served proudly alongside humans, protecting the galaxy that had once been ruled by fear. "Captain," she said, "we're receiving a distress call from the Andromeda sector. A species called the Krellans is threatening to destroy a refugee convoy." Minho stood up and walked to the main screen. In the distance, he could see other human ships changing course to respond to the same call. "Set course for Andromeda," he ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Guangzhou jumped to faster-than-light travel, Minho thought about the memorial on Earth. It bore the names of all 50,000 people who had died on the new Sol, along with a simple message. They wanted to find new worlds to call home. Instead, they found a galaxy that needed protecting. Their sacrifice lit the way. The Velthari had been right about one thing. They had started a war with the most deadly species alive. They just hadn't realized which species that was. Now, in the darkness between the stars, the galaxy's apex predators moved through space not as conquerors but as guardians. They had learned that the greatest strength wasn't the power to destroy, but the power to protect. And every species in the galaxy slept a little easier knowing that if something went bump in the night, humanity would bump back harder. The age of bullies was over. The age of protectors had begun.